Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about search within SharePoint and specifically how we can configure it to be more useful to our users. We're going to look at search verticals, creating our own custom ones, our custom filters within that, and then a custom layout for the search results. So this is a video I've been wanting to make for a while, so now is the time. So first, let's look at what the problem is or the issue that we're trying to resolve here. And it's really about the user experience or the search user experience for users on your site. Now, out of the box, when you don't configure anything and someone performs a search on your site, they're brought to a search results interface, which is not the most helpful unless we do things about it. So if we have a look at it over here, we can see that if we searched for the term project on a site, we'll typically get this kind of interface back, which I'm sure you'll be used to. So if I explain what it is, so when we come in here, we have our search results in here, which are displayed through a result type or a display template for that result, okay? Then we have things across the top here, which are called verticals, and they're like high-level filters of the results. So in here, we're on all, but we could change that so we're only going to show files, which would be the files vertical, sites, news, images, etc. Right? They're the verticals we get out of the box. Now, within any vertical, we've got a number of filters to help you, again, refine it even further. So we could be in here, and then we could filter by file type or last modified, okay? They're the filters that SharePoint gives us, and they're not the most useful, okay? Especially if you've got a site that has a specific use case or serves up a specific type of content. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to create our own custom vertical, which targets specific content on our site. We're going to look at creating some custom filters for that, which will target metadata associated with that content. And then we're going to create our own result template or result layout, which will include metadata to help them determine if the result that they see is what they were looking for. And what that looks like is if we come over here to another site this is a site that I've created that's all about projects, okay? We're going to have like a project archive or a project center, a directory of the projects within our organization. So we create the projects as pages, and we have metadata associated with them. Well, I'll get into that in a minute, the setup. But what we'll ultimately end up with is our own custom vertical in here called projects. And this is going to filter the content on our site to only show things that we've identified as being a project. So people will see projects here, and then we're going to have our custom filters in here. So the project area on this site would be space, nuclear fusion, and time travel. I'm very ambitious on this site. The project status or stage will be complete, planning, initiation, delivery. And then we're doing these projects for customers. So it'll be customer A, B, and C. So my example is projects, but your example could be anything, right? This is content and metadata, and that's all it is. So we have them in there, and we can filter by either of them, and it'll work great. So there's our nuclear fusion. So we filtered it down. We could also filter by planning. So now we can quickly, of all the projects on our site, we can narrow it down a lot quicker, and this should help people get to it. And then of course we have our custom result template where we have a nice little icon. We've determined we want to show the title of the project page and the URL. We have the description, and then we have metadata that we've tagged our project page with. So to be honest, I think this is really cool, and this bridges that gap, which I hear all the time, which is make search work for me. Well, really, the performance of search is really good. It'll find the content. I think the problem about refining your result set and narrowing it down to actually find what it was you were looking for. So that's what we're going to be doing here. And the great thing about all of this is you don't have to be a SharePoint admin or have any magic privileges to do this. If you are an owner of a site, so a site owner, you can do this within your site without any intervention from IT. And if you watch this video, you can do it yourself today. Imagine that. So that's really good. There is an extra piece because we like to go the extra mile here. So if I come back to the homepage of this site, you can see here, this is my project center. We have this really cool project search box on the page, right? Now, this piece does require a little bit of admin intervention because it requires the PnP Modern Search web parts. Now, these web parts don't come with SharePoint out of the box. You got to install them, but they're fairly industry standard. Everybody uses them. They're super, super useful. I definitely recommend them. But if you do get them installed and available on your site, I'll show you how you can put this search box on your page, clearly call out what it's searching for. And what it means is if we type in the term project in here, and then we go and do a search, we can configure this to point to the search results page, automatically land on our search vertical, and then people are right in here to where they can filter and find the projects they're looking for. So I think pulling all of this together really levels up the search experience on your site. So let's get in and look at the setup, and then we'll start configuring things. This video is sponsored by me and the SharePoint Internet Site Builder Masterclass. This is a course that I've put together for anybody who has inherited an existing intranet site or indeed wants to build a brand new department intranet site. The course focuses on the most common requirements I see again and again in the intranets that I build, and it acts as a step-by-step guide on how to create them. There's a big focus on user experience within this course, and I designed it so you don't have to be a techie to take it. This course is aimed at any business user who wants to up their game within SharePoint. So if you're interested, there's a link below along with a tasty discount to get you going. Now back to the video. So this results page lives on a site that I've created called A365 Project Center 2. So I can come up here and come back to the homepage and just explain a little bit to you about the setup of this site and how it works. So the idea here is that we have this site here, which is all about projects within our organization. And we have a nice homepage with lots of stuff to help people get started, standard enough SharePoint stuff. The way I've structured this site is that every project that's created within my company has a page on my site, okay? So if I come over to the site pages library, go to site contents and come into site pages, you'll see here that this is how I've got it set up. So basically we have the site pages library and we've put some metadata into this, and this is all going to drive the search on our site. So we've got our project status, which is a choice type column. So if I come in here and I go to column settings and edit, you'll see we have a choice column, and here are the options that I have. There's nothing special happening here. It's just a column which is choice. And I've got the exact same for project area, page type, and customer. Okay. Project area represents the high level functions within my organization, which are carrying out projects, like I said, ambitious with nuclear fusion, time travel, and space. Then we have page type. Now, page type is an important one in here, okay? They're all choice columns. Well, what page type does, it allows us to add a tag that says this is a project versus any other page on our site, and we'll be targeting that piece of metadata to drive our vertical. The last column in here is just another choice column, which is our customers, so we can tag a project with a customer. So far, fairly straightforward stuff, okay? We're not doing anything too fancy at the moment yet. So that's the setup in here. So if you have your site, you could do the exact same with a document library. If you have, say, a policies library or something like that, the concept is exactly the same. You just set up your site how you want it to. If you're following along with me, project status, project area, page type, customer, and these are the options that I have available. So obviously when you structure your library, you're going to add in your content and tag it appropriately, okay? Nothing too major happening there. Now, in order to make all of this work, we have to go a step further and we have to update the search schema on our site. And that just means that, yes, these are choice columns within this library, but we have to tell SharePoint they mean more than that, and we want to actually use them functionally within search. And to do that, we need to turn them into managed properties, okay? Now, don't worry too much about the terminology. It just means that when we create columns and tag metadata within SharePoint, SharePoint is like your nosiest neighbor ever. It looks at everything you do and it wants to know everything about it. So it will know that I've created these pages and it'll know that I've tagged them. And what it will do is it'll crawl all this content, that's the term, and it's going to create things called crawled properties. So it's going to know that we've created a column called project status, project area, page type, and customer. It's crawled them. It knows they exist, but it doesn't want to invest too much time in adding any functionality to that, right? So that's what we have to do. We have to take a crawled property and map it to a managed property. And don't worry, I'm going to show you this now in a second, but that's essentially what we need to do here. Once we've done that, that unlocks search customization for us and we can do some nice things with it. So this can be done at the site level like we're going to do it today, or we could do it at the tenant level if you wanted to apply to a lot of sites around your tenant. But let's keep it simple. Let's work within the site so you can do this as well without the admin help. So what we want to do is we want to go up to our cog, we want to go to site information and then view all site settings. This will take us to the settings page of the site. And there's two key areas we're going to work it in here. Okay, one is going to be the search schema under site collection administrator. Now you do have to be a site owner to access all of this, okay? So you're going to have search schema and then we're going to have Microsoft Search. So search schema is where we're going to do all that mapping of properties. And then the Microsoft Search is where we're going to create the customizations, okay? So two separate areas. First one we want to hit is going to be our search schema, okay? So I'll click that and it'll bring us to this interface in here, which I'll explain. Before I do, what I'm going to say is that I'm not building out this example again live, because the most frustrating part of all of this is that every time you update your search schema or you make these customizations, there's a lag between when you're going to see the result, because Microsoft has to, do its thing in the background and learn that you've done everything. And that doesn't happen in real time. It's run on a cycle of crawling and updates to the search schema. I think those are the right words. But anyway, all I'm saying is there's a delay between the change you make and when you're going to see it on your site. So for me to demonstrate it now, it just takes too long. So I've built it, so I'm going to walk you through exactly how I did. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to come to a tab up here called crawled properties. Okay, and when we land on that, you're going to see a hell of a lot of stuff in here. Okay, don't worry about it. What we're basically looking for is we're looking to find those columns we created on our site within our pages library, and then we're going to map them to these things over here called managed properties. Okay, so for example, if I was looking for project status, which is a column that I created, I type in project status and I'd hit enter, and that's going to look through all of the crawled properties and pull back what I'm looking for. So you can see in here, we found our property name OWS_project status. You're going to get the same kind of convention coming back, and that obviously matches the column we've created on our site. So when you see it in here, what you're going to do is you're going to want to click it. And when you come into it here, you'll see here that I've got a mapping in here already. You won't have that yet. So the step that you need to take in here is you're going to say add a mapping. And the way this mapping works is there's placeholder mappings that are available to you for this exact purpose. Okay, and for our purposes, what we're going to do is we're going to look for an available property called a refinable string. Don't worry about the terminology, that is just what it's called. So if you type in refinable string, you'll see here these are all placeholder properties essentially that you can map your crawled properties to. Okay, so you just pick whatever one you want. I picked 100 here in this case, so you would select that and you'd say okay, and then what that'll do is it's going to add in the mapping in here, and then you can just say okay. And when you do that, you'll see that you'll have your project status and it's going to be mapped to refinable string 100. Okay, so you're going to basically do that for all of the columns you've created in the area that you want to create the search experience for. For me, it was the site pages library. So when you found your crawled properties and you've map them to a refinable string, to verify what you've done is correct, you can go to manage properties, and in here you can search for refinable string, because these are going to be all of the properties that have things mapped to them. Okay, so I'll type in refinable string, and in here you can see my properties. So I have 100 to 103, and they're project status, project area, customer, and page type. Okay, now there's other stuff that's been mapped in here from previous projects and stuff like that. Don't worry about that. You're just looking for the ones that you've actually mapped. Okay, and they'll be in here, and that's super, right? They're ready to go. Now this page will be important because we're going to be referencing the refinable string number, okay, through the configurations we go forward. We'll no longer really be referring to things by the column name in the search configuration. We'll be using the refinable string. So either take a screenshot of this or just keep this tab open to the side, because you'll come back to it just to check what each refinable string represents. You with me so far? Okay, good stuff. So once you've done that, and again, this is where there's a bit of a time delay. SharePoint has to come up to speed with the fact that we've done this, and it takes a little while to do. Could take 10 minutes, could take an hour. It just takes a little bit of time. Okay, so what we can do is we can come up to home. I'm going to open it in a new tab because I want to keep this one handy for me. So I'll come over here and we're back into our site as normal, right? What we're going to do is we're going to come up to the cog again, and we're going to go to site information. We're going to go back to site settings basically. So view all site settings. So now what we want to do is, well, we've done our search schema bit, so top job. Now we're going to come over to Microsoft Search. So we click into here and we get this interface. So this is like a search center for our site specifically, because we access this through our site settings. There's a version of this for your overall SharePoint tenant, but like I said, we're at site level. So when you're in here, you see we've got two items in here really. We've got verticals and result types. So if I click into verticals, these are going to be the standard ones that we saw on our search interface. So we've all files, sites, news, images. So that relates to these default ones, okay, that are on your out of the box experience. Okay, now I've got the one that I've added that I'm going to show you how I did it, which is called projects. Okay, so that's the custom one we've added. And the way you add one is you just click add, and then you walk through this little wizard that's in here. Okay, so if I was recreating that project one, here's the settings I would go for, and this is the steps you'll take basically. So you want to give it a name. So I'm going to say this is called projects 2 because we already have the projects 1, right? So this can be anything you want. Then you're going to click next, and then it's going to say, well, what's the source of the content? Well, we know it's SharePoint because we're looking in our site. So I'm going to say next, and then it says enter a query. Okay, so this is where the vertical bit actually happens. This is the rule that says don't show me everything in this vertical, show me a specific thing. We know we want to show projects. So what you're going to want to do here is, if we come back here to our schema, we'll look at, well, which refinable string did we map page type to? So page type is here. Come across here, so it's refinable string 103. Okay, that means you're going to come in here and you're going to type in refinable string 103. Again, basically what this means is we're saying to SharePoint, look for refinable string 103. We'll put in a colon, and then you're going to want to give the value. So you're telling SharePoint, when you find content with refinable string 103, filter it to only show me things tagged as project. So that means when we carry out a search, it's going to find loads of results, and it's going to look at their properties, and it's going to pick out all of our project pages, which is exactly what we want within that vertical. So you put it in like that, and that's okay. And then we'll say next. And this is where we get to add in our filters, okay? So what you want to do is you say add filter. And in here, we're looking to pick from a pick list of filters, basically. Now, we have mapped the filters we want. So project status, area, and customer, they're all mapped to our refinable strings 100, 101, 102, okay? So that's why it's handy to have this page out and open. So you come in here and you're going to scroll down this list and you're going to find all these refinable dates, blah, 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 blah. And you're going to find your refinable strings, okay? So here is mine. So refinable string 100, I'm going to select that. I'm going to say next. Now it just says, well, what do you want to call this filter? Now we know refinable string 100 was project status. So I'm going to type in here, project status. And then everything else in here is fine. So we'll say add. We're going to add in another one. We'll go for refinable string 101. We'll say next, and I'll come back over here because I've got the memory of a goldfish. And that's going to be project area. So again, I'll type in project area and we'll add that one. And then we'll add the last one in, which is customer, which is going to be 102, which is good. And we'll say add. So there are our filters added within that vertical. And it really is that simple. Okay. So we're going to say next. And then this is just a review and finish. So our name is project 2. We're targeting SharePoint. We want to target pages we've tagged as project, and then we've got our filters, okay? And the last thing we do is we'll say enable, and then we say create vertical. Then it's going to say your vertical has been added, which is brilliant. And then we're going to say done. And now we have another one in here, okay? Now, this is another time where there's a delay in SharePoint. This can take up to 24 hours to appear, okay? So you got to trust the process, configure it, and then stand back and wait, okay? But it will show up, okay? So you'll know when it's there effectively when you come to your site and you search for something. So I'm going to say project and do a search. So I still have the one I created yesterday, but we won't see the projects 2 probably until later on today or maybe tomorrow. But when you do, you'll find that you will have the vertical in here and you'll have these additional filters that we just created, and all just work like magic, which is great. Now you can see here that I don't have the images and news and sites verticals in here. I actually disabled them because I didn't find them that useful and relevant to this site. So if you do want to do something like that, what you can do is you could say, select any of these guys in here. So maybe I want to hide files, let's say, hide that vertical. So we just select it, we say edit, and we say edit again, and we can just toggle over it to disable. And I can say update vertical, and I'll say done. And again, this will take time to reflect on your site, but eventually you'll get rid of it. And that's how you get a cleaner kind of search interface without all the verticals you don't need. Okay, so following so far, what we've done is we've created the vertical and we've created the filters and we've set up the information architecture on our site so that it'll all work together with our mappings. Super. So now we'll look at how I created this result layout, okay? Or the result type as SharePoint calls it. Okay, so for the result types, this area in here that we customized the look and feel, it's not too bad to do. It's fairly handy enough, but there was a bit of head scratching in figuring out when I first did it. So let me save you the hassle. So what you want to do is you come back into your search page where we created our verticals, okay? And now we're going to click on result types. So you can see here, this is the one that I created, which is what you're seeing in the demonstration. So if I wanted to recreate that, what I want to do is I want to say add, and we get a similar kind of a wizard in here. So you're going to want to name your result type. This won't appear on the front end, so call it what you want. I'm going to call it project result 2, but again, name it whatever makes sense to you. Then we're going to say next, and then it's going to say content sources, and we only really have one option here. So I'm going to select that and I'll say next. And now we get to kind of tell it, well, what is the type of content that's going to be returned that we want to manipulate the look of or configure the look of. So I'm using site pages, but you choose your relevant option. So I'm going to say site page. And now we have the rule. So the rule is basically saying when it shows a result, which type of result do we want to have this display template work for? So again, we're talking about our refinable string, which targets the type of page. So we have our pages tagged as project. They're the ones we want this to apply to. So I'm going to drop this down and I'm going to look for the refinable string which matches our page type. And as a reminder, I'll come back to this page here, and I know I mapped page type to refinable string 103. So that's what we're looking for, okay? So I'm going to say refinable string 103. So I have it here. I'm going to select that. And then the operator is going to be, we could say equals, but I'm going to say contains, right? Sometimes that works better than equals, right? So I'm just going to say the refinable string 103 contains project, okay? Because again, that's what I've created as the tag I want to look for, okay? So refinable string 103 contains project. That's the rule. When that rule is met, it's going to apply this template to that result. So that's great. So then I say next, and this is where we get into the fun bit, okay? So we have design your layout, and this uses a thing called adaptive cards, which is basically just a JSON display for something, okay? So what we want to do is you want to open the layout designer. You click this here and it's going to open up a new tab, okay? So if I click that, I get this in here, and basically you can choose to start from an existing layout, or you can create your own. Now, creating your own is going to be a separate video because it takes up a bit of time to explain, right? So what we can actually do is, well, we can start from one of these options in here, and more often than not, one of these will probably suit your needs, okay? So I choose this one down here where we have an icon, we have the title of the thing that we're linking to, we have who last modified it and when, we have a description, and then we have 2 metadata placeholders. So that's what I choose, okay? So what you want to do is you want to select that fella and then say get started. Okay, so when we're in here, basically this is the layout, and we just need to map it to the properties that match the content that we're targeting on our site, okay? Now, a lot of these properties are kind of universal. You'll use the exact same ones that I'm using right here. And that's for things like the title, the link, the modified, and the description. They're always going to be the same, right? So in here for title, in the property box, you want to type in title, okay? Title URL is going to be path, okay? It'll be the same for you. Modified by is a property called editor, and the modified time is just called modified. The description is going to be description. So far straightforward, right? And then the start date and due date, there are metadata placeholders, right? So we want the start date to be our project area, okay? So we need to put in the appropriate refinable string in here, okay? So if you want to remind yourself, you come back in here, and project area is refinable string 101. So I'll come back in here and I'll say this is going to be refinable string 101. And then our due date, well, that's going to be our project status, and that is refinable string 100. So I'm going to type that in there. Okay, so now we've mapped all the properties to the placeholders in here. Don't worry that it says started and due. We'll fix that in a minute. There's different ways you could go about this. You could go to edit layout, but I find that's, to be honest, just a little bit more confusing than anything else. I can just update these within the code that's produced from this. Fairly handy enough. It's just swapping out terms. It's fine. So that's what I'll do. So we're good at this point. So then you say create layout, and that says layout JSON copy. That's basically some code. And I say, okay, I'm kind of done with this screen. So I'll exit out of that, come back into here. And now it says paste the JSON script that you created with the layout designer, which is what we just copied. So you're going to paste it in here. Don't worry about this warning message here. It comes up all the time. So basically you can drag this down here, okay, and we can have a look at what we got. Now, all of this is pretty much fine, okay? Just the bit that we want to pay attention to is where we have our refinable strings, okay? And they're all in here as they should be, but what we want to do is we want to update the label, okay? So we know started, well, that was going to be project area. So everywhere you see started in here, in these double asterisks, you change that to the label you want it to be. So I'm going to say project area, okay? And just for easiness, I'm going to copy that. I'm going to look down in here for everywhere that says started. So there's another one there. And I'm going to update that with project area, and that is good there. And then where we have due, that's going to be project status. So again, this is just free text, right? You can pop in whatever label you want, but project status is what I want. So everywhere I had due, like in there, and that's fine. And I know when I'm editing this video, I'll see one that I missed, but just know what I'm trying to do here is I'm just replacing the default labels with the labels I actually want, okay? That's all I'm really doing. So that looks all good in there for the moment anyway. Don't worry about all this gobbledygook in here, all this placeholder at the bottom. Confused me the first time. It can stay there. It doesn't do anything, doesn't affect anything. You're grand. So that's pretty much everything we need to do in here. One last thing is that if you remember on my site, I had this custom icon in here for my search results. If you want to create an icon or have something custom in there, all you're going to do is you're going to upload it to your site, get the path of it, and you're just going to pop that URL in there. Well, actually, let me show you how to do that. So if you want an icon, basically come to your site. Easiest way to do it, go to site contents, site assets. You can just store it in here. You'll see here I've updated rocket in here. That's just my icon of the rocket. I think I created at 32 pixels by 32 pixels. Okay, that size is good enough. So you pop it in here, just upload it into here. And when you've got it in here, what you want to do is you want to select it, click the information icon here. drop all the way to the bottom, and you'll see a path in here. You basically copy that path. That's the direct URL to this image. And that means when you're in here, you just swap out this URL with the path you just copied. And that means that that'll be the icon that shows with, your results of this type. So when you've done that, it's not that scary, I promise. You just got to do it and then you'll know it, So when we do that, we say next. And then this is just a review point here and everything. Yeah, it's grand, looks great, brilliant. So we've got the name of it. We've got the content source. We've got the rule. So we're going to say type of content equals SharePoint page of refinable string 103 equals the project. Show this layout, and that's fine. And then we just say create result type. So your result type is added. And again, this is one of them things where we just have to wait essentially for it to happen. It could take an hour, it could take 24 hours, but after 24 hours, you should be good. It should be there. And you'll find that when it is there, if you do a search on your site, you'll see then that, if you're in the all tab, okay, you'll see that all your results that match the criteria we set will all have the icon and they'll all have our specific layout. So even in the all results view, this can be a great way to call out or identify specific result types. And then of course you'll have your vertical that we created, and actually our other one has been created now, so it didn't actually take that long. So if I click into the one we created together, we see that we have it filtered to only show our project results. We're showing the project status, we're showing the project area, we're showing the customer. All of this is the refiners, or the filters, I should say. And our layout is there in place. So that's kind of all you need to do. And like I said, you can just be the site owner and you can do all of this. So it seems a lot, okay, but really it's a case of just repeating it and practice, and you'll get there very quickly. I promise you, it's not that hard. And then the last piece of this puzzle is where we go in and we use the modern search web part, okay? And that's where we can create this piece of experience here, which I think is the icing on the cake, and it's really nice. And it just means that, like I said, we can enter our search term here and it'll automatically go to the vertical we choose, okay? So for example, I type in project again, I hit search, it takes me to the search page and will automatically target our vertical we created. So it's a really nice way to say, don't mind the overall search, here's a very specific search box which will return a very specific result type. And it's a really nice piece to the user experience, I think. So how did I do it? Okay, so this is the bit where you need the admin for the SharePoint admin, because this web part here doesn't come with your site. It needs to be added to your site for you to use. So what we're using is the PnP Modern Search web parts here. This is the site. I'll put the link in the description below. Just send this on to your admin and they'll know all about it, I'm sure. And you can get it added to your site. When it is added to your site, then the rest of this is pretty simple, okay? So I'll show you how I've set this up here, okay? So I'll click edit on my page and we'll just recreate it down here. So I have basically a 1/3 left column section here. So I'm going to say add a section and I'm going to choose my 1/3 left. Over in this side, I'm just going to add in a text web part and I called it project search. And just for good fun, I'll add in an emoji in here, which is going to be my search icon. Okay, brilliant. And then I think I just made this a H2. I probably brought it up to something like 36. And then I made it bold. Okay, so that's our label. That's our kind of pointer to let people know what's here. And then over on this side, I'm going to add in a web part. And if I type in PnP, I will see that I have these web parts. These are the additional web parts that get added. Now you can do a hell of a lot with these web parts, but we're only going to do something simple. So I want a PnP search box, which will come in like this. So then you want to go to the properties of this. And now this is where we want to configure it to do all the good stuff that we want it to do. So I'm going to type in the placeholder text. That's this little bit in here. So you can type in anything you want really. So I'll just say enter a search term to find a project. If you're a fan of the emojis like me, you're just going to add one in here. So I'll pop this rocket in here, which is good. So that's great. So then, okay, what do we want to do here? So the next option is send a query to a new page. That's what we want, because we want to send a query to the search results page. So I'll select that. And now we have a couple of options in here. Okay, input query text, leave that what it is, because that basically means whatever's typed in here, that's what it's going to send to the new page. So then you're wondering, well, what page am I sending this to? So the way you figure that out is if we just publish this page for a second and we do a search up here and we say project, that brings us in here, which is the default experience. I'm going to select the vertical that I created. Okay, so when we have that in here, just pull the browser down so you can see the URL. So basically this is the URL we want, but we only want part of it, okay? So you're going to kind of find in the URL, right, where you have a question mark and then you have Q equals. So this project here, that was the search term we entered, okay? So we can take everything to the right of the equal sign, okay? And we just delete that. And then we'll copy the rest of the URL. Okay, that's what we want. Okay, so then we're going to come back to our home page. We'll put the page into edit mode again, select the search box web part, go to properties, and then in the page URL, we're just going to pop in that URL we got there. And then you have a choice here. What's the behavior? Do you want to open it in the current tab or open it in a new tab? Choose whatever you want. I leave it on open in current tab. And then we have the method. Okay, so we drop this down and we want query string parameter. So we click that. And what's the parameter name? Well, if you remember from the URL, it was q equals. So the parameter is q. So you just type in q there and you don't have to worry about any of the other options in here. That's all you got to do. So you put that in there like this. Everything else then is just styling. So, you know, if you want these to line up together, all you have to do is select the section, hit the properties here, and you just say center. And that's going to make them nice and aligned. Then the only thing I really did is I added in a background behind this, but you can, you know, add in anything you want. So once you've done that, we'll click republish. And now it means if we come in here and we enter in a term, so project, and we hit enter, it's going to automatically bring us to our search results page in the vertical that we wanted. And then, you know, that's magic at that point. It's really going to be something that I think is useful to users. So there you have it. There's lots of different ways you can customize search. Most of it can be done just as a site owner. Like I said, the last bit just requires them additional web parts. But once you have them available to you, again, you saw it's very simple. So I know this was a long video. We covered a hell of a lot of ground, but I know when I was originally trying to figure this out, I didn't find a lot of resources that helped me and walked me through it. So hopefully this can be that for you. I can see in the future that I will be creating a video which will be the Google version of it, intranet, where we'll create lots of filters, lots of result types, and lots of verticals that, you know, will allow your intranet to work really like a Google search. But that's a lot of work to even set up, let alone build. So yeah, to come down the road. So if you've got any questions, please put them in the comments below. And if you're so inclined, a like and a subscribe, if you're not already, is super helpful. So yeah, until the next weird and wacky SharePoint adventure, see ya.